Hey, it's time for some brass facts. Today we're going to be covering comm setup. Even without a ham license, there's a huge amount of benefit to squaring away your comm system for a number of scenarios, anything from hiking with the bros, basic emergency, civil unrest, LARPing in the desert, and communicating when the cellular network is down, end of times, you name it. Comms, or the ability to talk to other people, pretty important. I think personally, no kit or loadout, preparedness plan, whatever you want to call it, is complete until you have a basic comms system worked out. To me, a radio offers both the option to communicate with people at range, to organize stuff, but also functions as a squad level, borderline line of sight system to kind of do tactical stuff at closer range. I'm going to be featuring, for this basic comms video, the ubiquitous UV5R from Baofeng, but I'll offer a couple other options in the rough price bracket range. I'll also discuss potentially upgrading to a better system. I'll also discuss programming, CHIRP, and some other basic terminology, setup, and more. To be sure, this is what has worked for me. I'm by no means a comprehensive expert in radios. Actually, I'm probably not an expert in anything. So as usual, do your research. Don't mimic what I do here. This is just a primer, so to speak. A quick detour. Some people suggest, or try to when getting into a radio, try to buy one of these. They go down to their local Walmart and buy a bubble pack radio. What these are FRS radios. These are great. However, due to FCC regulations, these are intentionally handicapped so you can hand it off to your 7-year-old and he can't break any. These don't really work for preparedness since their range is so hard limited, and functionally they are less than line of sight radio options. You'll be operating on a frequency band that will also be fucking jam-packed in the best of times and likely completely overrun in an emergency. What we want is a radio with a lot of juice that can access a large range of frequencies and has a acceptable aftermarket. Hence, the UV5R, basic bitch pumpkin spice latte of the comms industry. The UV5R is a dual band radio. It can transmit either on VHF or UHF, giving us access to a huge gambit of radio channels. It transmits at 5 watts. It's programmable on the fly or via software, has a removable antenna, removable battery pack, and it can also actually receive on AM frequencies, which is quite useful in emergency to access, for example, like an EAS message system. And more importantly, it costs $20 hairs on Amazon. This is insanely feature-packed, and there are some better radios that don't have all of this stuff. Now, before proceeding, the UV5R breaks several FCC regulations. While it's not illegal to own a UV5R, and breaking the FCC regulations isn't technically considered breaking the law, you technically can get in trouble for transmitting on any frequency due to the power, removable antenna, and more. However, it's acceptable to listen in only on an emergency. It's considered acceptable to transmit on full power on whatever frequency you deem necessary. Newer UV5Rs will not be able to transmit on most frequencies. However, should you like to preempt your usage of a radio in an emergency, you can factory reset the radio by pressing the PTT, MONI, VFO/MR button and turn the radio back onto its factory setting, removing these limitations permanently. For emergency usage, of course, only. Random tidbit of information, you can actually check the FCC, I believe, their records on finding people and stuff, and as far as I know, they have never fined someone for using a UV5R in a non-emergency setting. Do with that information what you will. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get the UV5R set up, because to be frank, these don't come in a great state out of the box, and a lot of people use them in this configuration and they're really not living up to their potential like this. There are many ways to skin this cat, but this is how I do it. You're going to want to buy the basic radio, generally the one with the charger, the cradle, because that's the best way to charge it efficiently most of the time. This is about $24 depending on the day. It's $1 more than just the radio, so you might as well buy this and end up with a fuckload of these cradle chargers. Just toss them in the pile of unwanted gun locks that gun manufacturers keep sending with their firearms. Also, if you didn't catch it, all of the links of the products mentioned so far will be down in the description. Heads up, some of these might be affiliate links with like Amazon, where I get like 1 cent of kickbacks. Buy it, use it, or don't use it. Up to you. Do not buy the value pack that costs $10 more. It's all bloat, and we'll be buying better versions of the stuff they include in that later. Anyway, for each radio you buy, you're going to want to remove the basic antenna, and throw that in the same pile as those excess chargers. Instead, you're going to get a Nagoya 771. That is a long lad. For the sake of screen real estate, I will be using the collapsible variant of the 771. These drastically increase performance such that you'll be able to go from, give or take, depending on conditions and your frequency band, anywhere from 2 to 3 cities in a block, roughly non-line of sight, to potentially halfway across the city. Think 3 to 10 miles depending on, once again, conditions. That is a huge increase in performance for just an antenna. This is by far the most important upgrade you can buy, and 100% of your UV5Rs should have a dedicated antenna for it. Once again, this is a retractable one, but it's still considered a Nagoya 771. This is the Nagoya 771R. The longer one is the standard one is the 771A. Next, you're going to want to buy some spare batteries. Here are a couple spare batteries. This is a branded, so Baofeng brand battery. This is a Chinese knockoff Baofeng licensed battery, but it all comes from China anyway, so, and they literally have the same back marking, so I'm not even sure anymore. I just buy either. This is a battery pack, so it fits in. However, it's actually empty, and you're meant to use AAAs in these. It's worth noting, these are very much an emergency device, because basically all of these have finicky contacts, and as you jump up and down, depending on the luck of the draw, it'll suck pretty bad. As in, it'll break contact and your radio will turn off and on, off and on, off and on. This isn't just for power. These little ones are fine, right? They actually have an okay capacity. The big reason why we want to buy these batteries instead is because the smaller batteries only charge via the cradle charger. The bigger ones, however, have this little port on the side, which allow you to charge it via a USB cable, which is this guy right here. That is important because it allows you, during a potential emergency situation, which is the primary goal for these bad boys, to charge your batteries off of a USB battery bank. And USB battery banks are a lot easier to keep up via solar, whatever, and doesn't require a wall socket level of power. And that really is about it for setting up your radio primarily. However, there's probably going to be a couple things you want to do to improve your radio experience overall. So you can absolutely just leave this in a pouch and call it a day and pull it out Taliban style and just talk on it direct. However, for, we'll say it once again, tactical style things, we're going to want to rig up push-to-talks, antennas, and more. Because I want to access this radio on my front side, I'm going to migrate the antenna away because this is an incredibly long antenna and it does get in the way. You can buy a basic cable extender like so, which allows you to screw in an antenna, wrong side. You can screw an antenna like this, and then screw this piece in to the radio. These come in different lengths, and as you can imagine, this allows you to run your radio up front and then weave this section through the rear of your plate carrier into the molly, thus having an antenna. Because we're on a plate carrier, once again, we need a push-to-talk because it's too much work to pull this out and press every single time, especially when you're trying to do other stuff and have a conversation. While a lot of Baofengs will come with their own PTT, I am a big fan of this BTECH PTT. It's got a far better alligator clip on the back, which, trust me, it actually does matter, especially when you're only spending like $10 on these things. But more importantly, it includes a little piece right here for an aux cable style thing. This allows you to hook into a Howard Leight style helmet and be able to hear what your radio is, hearing on your headset. Most of the time, especially during training, you don't want to wear, your helmet setup, which for me, I have a bump helmet only. I only use it for night vision usage. So I can communicate via the speaker here. However, should I use night vision and I still want to use comms, it allows me to go to a much lower auditory signature by routing into my helmet. Nothing special here. This has been done in the military. The cool party trick is that I can switch back to the speaker mode as desired. Some other weird things that you might want to consider. The UV5R has a fairly exposed side panel here. And as you can see, it's very easy for this PTT to press. If you have a dedicated radio, remember this is only like $20. If you have a dedicated radio, you can just peel this out, usually with a Leatherman or something, and remove the PTT button. The button will still be there, it'll just be recessed. And it'll look ugly, But if this lives in your plate carrier, that's an easy way to prevent yourself from hot miking like crazy. And you can just tear this out and put it in your into your pouch. Alternatively, you can get 3D printed cutouts that prevent the volume knob from moving and the PTT from moving inadvertently. Super useful. If you own COMTACs or other style of military headsets, you won't be able to use a setup like this specifically. Well, the table's getting full. You're going to want to replace this PTT with something from like Disco 32. Make sure to buy a Kenwood style. Kenwood refers to the type of plug right here, the double plug. 2 plugs, one for audio and one for... That more or less covers what you need to do to get a Baofeng set up to a functional state where you can use it as a squad level and range communication device. However, it's important to understand your journey doesn't end here. Too many people show up with a radio that they bought out of the box. They might have bought the battery, they might have bought the antenna, but they actually have no idea how it works. You can usually tell when this is the case where you turn on the radio and you have this lovely lady, screaming at you the entire time. The reality is you need to learn how to use your radio, configure it, practice with it, and more. Starting out, I like to program the radio to a generic list of channels. That's what I did initially. The pre-programmed channels on here are kind of random. So for example, I like to have channel 1 through 22 FRS, and then I followed it up with MERS or something, and then I labeled them via the software. So when I'm, going through the different when I'm going through the different channels, I can get a rough intuition of what channels are what frequency band, and that helps me learn, so on and so forth. For some people, you may want to skip straight past this and program in the channels channels you want to use. So channel 1 is the one you use with your homies, channel 2 is your backup, channel 3 is, something. You can do this manually by typing it in with the keypad, or instead, I would recommend downloading a CHIRP software. I considered doing a guide on this, but honestly, I'll link a video top right-hand corner. It's just a better video regarding how to program these with CHIRP. Make sure to buy the program cable. It was once again a Kenwood to USB, and that will allow you to, program your radio. Just look it up. There are a lot of pre-done radio channel setups that mimic what I mentioned earlier, and if you want to do that, you can just Google it and find one of those, copy, paste it straight in. Here are a couple buttons that you're going to want to know. Top left, this orange one, this will switch you between channel mode and frequency mode, and if you still have the lady on,
frequency mode, channel mode,
she'll let you know. The frequency mode allows you to manually enter in your frequency. Channel mode allows you to recall a existing channel you have pre-programmed in, so instead of manually typing in 4, 5, 6 or whatever, you can just simply hit channel 001, channel 002, or even use the arrows to switch between them. A and B swaps between 2 different channels. If you have 2 different channels on screen at the same time, this is useful if you have like a home base and an infield group you're talking to, or if you're using the TDR setting, which allows you to monitor 2 things at the same time, or 2 channels at the same time. The big old button on here is your push to talk. For the love of God, if you don't have practice with push to talks, this is new to you, right? You don't typically use radios. Press, wait for a millisecond, talk, then wait for a millisecond, then release. A lot of people are not used to push to talks and start pushing as soon as they press the push to talk, and depending on your timing, you might just cut yourself off.
channel mode,
Shut up! The bottom right-hand corner, the pound sign, or I guess the cool kids call it hashtag nowadays, locks the radio if you hold it. You'll see a little key show up on the thing. This is useful because you don't want these buttons being impressed when it's in your radio pouch. Okay, I was trying to make a point about how loud the lady is,
channel mode,
so I turned her back on, but let's show you how to turn off some stuff. Squelch. Squelch is what determines what is considered background information and what is considered an actual transmission. If you have 0, you will just hear static. If you have it maxed out, you will hear only very clear communications. Typically, you'll want this on 5, 6, or even 7. Moving along, TXP, transmission power. This is your power. You'll typically just leave this on max. Vox. This is something you should never touch unless you want everyone to hate you. TDR is what I mentioned earlier. It allows you to use both channels or listen in on both channels that you have in the radio simultaneously. The Roger beep, which is going to be all the way at the end of your programming list, is the bleep noise you hear after your PTT. You generally want this off, and I actually believe some channels require it. And then finally, the lady is under voice, turn her off. There are other useful settings. Of course, wideband versus narrowband, signal codes, and more. I recommend just printing this bitch out and having all of these settings explained to you in a paper format. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what each setting does. There's a lot of settings and they have to use acronyms to describe them all, so it's a great way to learn exactly what you're doing in the settings. Practically speaking, however, you probably won't ever be messing with these settings once you have it configured to your liking. The only setting that I adjust in the field is transmit power and squelch. This is the part where we ground it, because the UV5R isn't the end-all be-all. The UV5R has a hell of a feature set and a price point that makes fast food look gourmet. So what's the issue here? 90% of the issues with the UV5R can be summed up with jank. They're not that durable. While you can easily buy 10 or more UV5Rs for the price of a single good radio, the reality is they break in the field, and unless you're carrying multiple radios on you, that would be a major pain in the ass day. I have about a fleet of 10 of these, and I've broken 3 in a 2-year time span. Once again, cost-wise, cost isn't the issue. I'm still well ahead of the cost of a single radio of most other types. And most of the time, I generally actually have another radio present by chance. But it isn't about cost. This can be considered a critical mission component, if you want to call it that, and having a radio conk out, regardless of the cost, is a huge pain in the ass. This is especially true when how UV5Rs tend to fail. They don't tend to just die outright. They do random stuff. One of them transmitted 90% static, one of them transmitted at a super low volume level, and one of them could only receive, and I wasn't able to transmit even though the transmit button was lighting up. This is all really hard to tell in the moment. It's also finicky. The Kenwood pin system here leaves a lot to be desired in the best of times, and this is a radio made in a Chinese sweatshop. The fitment, durability, and more just isn't great on these styles of pins. It's very common with these guys that someone just ceases to talk over comms, and it turns out his PTT pins had moved a hair of an inch, and the good connections failed, and it took us 30 minutes to realize Bob has been yapping this whole time, but no one can actually hear him. You can grab a UV9R, which is the slightly better ruggedized version of the UV5R, which uses a superior pin system. Kind of looks similar to a Motorola XTS pin setup, but not quite the same. Hopophile swears by this setup, as it solves a lot of the consistency and connection issues that the UV5R has. And with my time working with him over multiple long trips, it does seem to function far more consistently than the UV5R. My only gripe with the UV9R setup is that it doesn't use Baofeng UV5R batteries, which, as I mentioned, not only are these prolific and cheap, but you can USB recharge these. You can't USB recharge the UV9R batteries. You need a wall and plug it in and charge it off the cradle. Technically, there is a charging system, but I am dubious about its long-term viability due to how it handles it. You know, plugging into a cradle charger that was meant to be plugged into a wall. Other options also exist on the market. The Yaesu FT60R, these go for about $150. They use the same antenna as the Baofeng, and functionally speaking, in a lot of ways, they're just a Baofeng that isn't cheap. And I actually mean that in a good way. They're more durable, less finicky, so on and so forth. There are absolutely more options on the market, but for a basic, cheap setup, I think these are some of the standouts. And I think that's it, yeah. Basic comm setup. People like to shit on the UV5R, and honestly, it does probably deserve some of that flack. Running these things is a love-hate relationship because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. They also have a glorious reputation of being used by airsoft kiddos, and then they blast on 5 watts on the FRS or MERS or whatever bands, or worse, the ham bands, as they play their tactical games. At the end of the day, you could do worse. I mean, you can't, these are about as cheap as it gets, but you get what I mean. These sort of end up as the PSA of comms. Is it pretty? No. But if we're talking between a $50 setup or no setup at all, you can do a lot worse than a UV5R, and these are a great way to convince your friends to get into comms who might otherwise be hesitant. Now here's the question. Does this radio setup make sense for you? Personally for me, it depends. Will you use this radio as a primary radio for a non-tactical setting, for basic emergencies, the usual to supplement something like a cell phone. Yeah, these are great. They have all that you need, and they are very easy to set up and very useful in emergency type situations. Their durability isn't so questionable that, it's just going to ball out on you while transmitting from home or whatever you're doing. They're also small enough that you can stash many of these throughout your systems, your car, your motorcycle, different house, at work, in a bag, and you're not going to be out a whole lot of cash. Just make sure to buy that extra antenna. Are you balling on a budget and you need a lot of radios, both for multiple kits or perhaps friends and more? Yeah, this is great for that as well, for the exact same reasons. These are easy to set up in a competent setup for not that much money, and they're not capable. They can do things. Are you looking to get a radio to set yourself up tactically for certain types of systems going into the future? Here's where it depends. If you're willing to lose some money, then this radio is actually great because you'll buy maybe 5 of these, set them up properly, and use them. You will find yourself eventually growing out of this radio. For me personally, I don't mind owning a bunch of UV5Rs because once again, they're still great emergency radios. You can stash them in places, you can put them in bags, whatever, and at the end of the day, if you lose it or they burn out or whatever, you're out maybe $20 because you can usually salvage the antenna. It is a great backup radio system even when you move beyond the Baofengs. Now, if you want to just skip to the best stuff, yeah, probably skip a UV5R. Go into a nicer digital radio so you can do encryption, a little more durable, so on and so forth. Next time, I'll be talking about a more advanced setup, specifically something like this, a Motorola XTS 2500. This is not only more durable, but we have a lot more features, customization, and of course encryption. Regardless, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I wanted to keep this fairly basic because I think the biggest issue with radios for prepared citizens is not that they're hard to use, not that they're not capable, it's that it feels overwhelming. And I want to be sure to convey setting this shit up super easy. Get started, be it if you buy something more expensive or you just get started with the Baofeng. Regardless, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.